You are listening to the USDN on the DSPN.
It's a trap!
What is up, everyone, and welcome to the United States Department of Nerds, where we are for the people, by the people, and of the people. Tonight, we are stepping into a story that blends history, family legacy, crime, vengeance, and the kind of title that makes you stop in your tracks: the Mafia versus the Klan. Our guest tonight is writer and creator C.E. Massari, whose upcoming 120-page original graphic novel is being released with Source Point Press. I'm so happy they are back, and is preparing for a Kickstarter pre-sale campaign ahead of its wider release. This book is described as John Wick meets the Godfather, but underneath that cinematic hook is something much deeper. This is a historical noir inspired by real family history, including his grandfather's experiences with the Klan and the tragic murder of Augustina Massari. So tonight, we're going to talk about the story behind the story, how you turn real trauma into fiction, how you write about hate without giving it power, and how a creator builds a graphic novel that is equal parts personal legacy, historical fiction, and crime revenge epic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council of Nerds is now in session. C.E., welcome to the council, my friend.
I'm happy to be here. Always happy to talk comics, and just happy to talk in general. I run my mouth a lot.
Hey, I understand. It comes with the business that you are in and the business I used to be in. It's kind of what we do, man. But we could talk some more about that one later. But let's dive into this, man. Who is C.E., and how did you get into comics?
Yeah, I always like, at least for some of my bios, I put hailing from the slums of Shaolin, but not really. It's my Wu-Tang reference, big Wu-Tang fan, aficionado, Liquid
We're
Source,
all,
the greatest
hey,
album of all time.
Wu-Tang is always for the children, no
Yes,
matter what
always
age
for the
they
children.
are.
So yeah, I started getting into comics when I was younger. Like a lot of people probably of my generation, as we call it, sound like an old man. 90s kid, Fox Kids TV, X-Men, Spider-Man, the Batman series, the Batman the animated series, Batman Beyond, all those kind of things. I grew up with that Saturday morning cartoon aspect of comics. I can actually say one of my current friends, he's a lawyer now, but when we were in school, he used to bring in his Daredevil comics, and I was like, oh, I love these TV shows. He's bringing in comics. I should go out and, find them. We get my own physical copies. So this is about fifth grade. I started going to a local comic shop. I specifically remember it because the guy had a black cat. He was like the cat of the comic store. And that just kind of what started it. I stuck with it. It's always ebbed and flowed. I'm sure with a
Yeah.
lot of people who read comics, depending where you're at, finances, time, all that fun stuff. So sometimes you have good years and you're getting like everything off the shelf. And I'm in the period now where I don't really read too much. I don't really look at too much, only because one, I don't really have the time. And two, I'm interested in other stories that aren't comics. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. If there's stuff that I like I've heard really good things about Absolute Batman. I actually got my son, he's 11. I got him started with a pole bin at a comic shop that I used to go to frequent. He's on Absolute Batman. I got him on Moon Knight. So I still love comics. I still love the genre. I'm just at kind of a
Yeah.
different point in the amount of time that I can spend with the family, with kids, with the job. I own a business. I've got a lot of things going on, so my time is very precious. And there's a lot of comics and there's a lot of issues in the comics industry as a whole that I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. It's just hard to get excited. It's a lot of
Yeah.
recycling of ideas. It's a lot of recycling of stories. There
Man,
doesn't
dude,
seem
that's
to
why I
be
stay with the indies, man. If you stay with the indie comics, you ain't got to worry about that.
So that's my problem. So I have a lot of indie friends, and I'll back their Kickstarters, and that's really the
Yeah.
only time that I read comics is
Dude,
people
you
that
can
I
go
know
broke
that
just doing that.
Yeah, well, that's the other issue is you end up spending way more than you probably should, and my
Yeah.
wife sees it, and then it's like, why are you backing another Kickstarter? It's like, well, this look cool, and it's a friend. I want to
Yeah.
support him. But
Dude,
that's really
I
where I'm
just,
at.
I literally just bat 3 like this
Oh,
week. And it's just like people I know, people I admire in the industry, people that have been on the podcast. It's like their second or third book. And I know they're writing. I know they're how they are. I'm like, dude, I know that book is going to be good. Let me go ahead and get that. So
I mean, you look at the industry as a whole. Kickstarters, Indiegogos, whatever you're using as far as your crowdfunding are great. The problem is all the back end stuff to get it noticed, where
dude,
the zeitgeist not being what it quite was, and hey, there's the big publishers, and then some smaller ones, and that's how you get picked up. The other issue is like, hey, to get noticed, you got to really do we'll call it the groundwork, to get
yeah,
noticed, get things on your Kickstarter, your Indigo, whatever you're doing crowdfunding, but also gives you a lot of control. It gives you a lot of
yeah,
control of your product. I started, I would say started before getting started and getting into it. What I actually want to do is fight professionally. That this is kind of we'll call my origin story. I
Hey,
was always
actually,
interested in comics.
before you get to
Yep.
that, that's actually a lead into the next question.
Oh,
So
oh,
before,
oh.
no, you're perfect. You were going, but I want to get this question in because the
Yeah,
answer you're about to give is going to answer this question.
yeah.
So before we get into the Mafia versus the Klan, what was your path into writing and journalism into comics? Now you can go with that part because I know that part is this
No,
the answer
no,
to this.
perfect. I'm glad I was on pace. It's like I got a little bit of I say this jokingly, experience in this, which I'll get into as far as like
I have
how I got
journalistic integrity, and he did not get any questions before this,
I did
so
not.
I
We
will
did not
never
talk
send my
about it.
questions beforehand.
So like I said, I got started in comics, and I always loved the stories. Like I was reading manga in high school and like sixth,
Mhm.
seventh, and eighth grade when it was a weird thing to do. Now I understand,
Dude,
like every
my
celebrity
my
like throwing
daughter
on.
started in like elementary school, like 4th or 5th grade,
Yeah,
and I didn't understand what manga was at the time. And then she's
yeah.
like, "Well, will you just take me to the bookstore so I can show you?" So I took her to the bookstore, and this is kind of like her origin story, I guess, into this. But I was like, "Oh, it's just a Japanese comic book, basically." She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, bet." So you're asking me to read a
Look
book?
at the color.
Yeah. I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah." I'm not going to say no. You can't read a book. That would be like a mean thing to do.
And
My
well,
daughter's
manga,
like
I
standing right
say
there.
she's listening. And so when I say manga, like again, most kids of my age, Dragon Ball Z was the thing. I was the person,
Mm,
with Beckett Dragon Ball Z. If anyone remembers that, like those magazines were my local Kmart. They were
yeah.
fantastic. Everyone
Yep.
speculating Super Saiyan 5, 6, 7, 8. That was my entry point. I was doing Kung Fu at the time. A lot of the guys who were training there, they were already into Naruto when it was early on, a lot of other anime and stuff like that. So
Mhm,
that's what got me into manga. But I was always into, we'll call it the visual arts, comics, manga, American,
mhm,
Western, whatever you want to call it. And I always wanted to write it. The thing was, I didn't know how that would happen. Also, I love my dad, but my dad is very much like, okay, you're going to do that. How are you going to pay your bills? So I was looking into a lot of different avenues as far as what I was going to do. I was going to go to school. I wanted to go into the military. I wanted to do like a special forces thing, a whole
mhm.
all over the place thing. But I was always doing martial arts since I was like 5 years old, which got started because of the Power Rangers, actually, and
Oh, of
particularly
course.
the Green Ranger, who I actually got to was really cool. One point in my career, I got to interview him, and he was the reason. Yeah, RIP. I met him. I worked with him in a couple different occasions. I worked at a martial arts company. He was one of our clients. I almost got to put together. So this is something I haven't told to anyone. So you're getting
Ooh, I
an
like a good
exclusive right
scoop.
here.
I like a good scoop.
I'll send you the art too. Is I almost got a comic with him. So this was right before he signed with Valiant. For was it
Mhm.
Bloodshot or Blood
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Me and a publisher I was working at the time, we had some sketches done. We had a whole storyboarded. He was working at a martial arts company that basically created him as the create. Most people don't know this. It's a company called Educational Funding Company. They
I'm aware
kind
of
of.
it.
Oh, you know EFC?
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Okay, so I used to, when they were trying to go through a revamp, I used to work for them. So they did a lot with Jason David Frank, a lot of the big martial artists at the
Mhm.
time. And so I got connected with him. I was like, hey, do you remember me from this interview? And then we got talking. So I actually have some comic sketches and some concept art for a
Yeah.
story that we were going to do. He signed the contract, and it never went anywhere past that. In saying all that, I always wanted to write, and I've been doing martial arts since I was 5. I was getting into MMA, was watching it for a while, and I was doing kung fu. But then I was like, oh well, if I want to do MMA, like I need to learn jiu-jitsu and all these other things. Sort of branch into that. And there's, if anyone's probably, some might remember it, some might not. There's a show called Bully Beatdown. My favorite fighter,
Yeah.
one of the greatest people of all
Yeah.
time, Mayhem Miller. That I wanted to be Mayhem
Yeah.
Miller. I had my own red stripe in my hair. She found my
Whatever
sister-in-law
happened
at
to
the time. She was
Mayhem?
going to
Like,
hair school. Hey, Mayhem, I'm so happy to hear this. Mayhem had a really, really, really bad turn of events. He is now in the men's. He's sober. He's doing a lot of stuff on
good,
social media.
good.
He's training. He's teaching. It's the greatest comeback story, and I love seeing it because he was someone I always
Like, he
looked
was
up
the
to in
host
the
of
way.
Bully Beatdown, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep. Host
Yeah.
of Bully Beatdown. And that's why I use that as
Yeah.
the way most people aren't going to know him from mixed martial arts. Some
No,
people
I knew
will,
it from
even as
MMA
well.
before he did Bully Beatdown.
Hey, his entrances are hands down some of the greatest things I've ever seen of all time. Super
Yeah.
original. When people talk about Adesanya, no, Mayhem Miller, he's the king. There's hands down no one doing entrances like him. But I want to be the next Mayhem. That was who I wanted to emulate myself, and I was like, oh, I can
Mhm.
pivot. What I'll do is I'll have this career in MMA, even if I'm not that good. I can do the Mayhem thing. I can have big entrances. I can market myself, yada yada yada, and pivot that to a writing career. Because how else are you going to do it? Now that didn't work out. I ended up getting hurt. But that mindset when I was in college, my first year or two, I was a double major in history and philosophy and religious studies. I was like, my backup plan will be I'll be a history teacher. But after like a year or two, I was like, I can go into journalism. It'll teach me how to write.
Yeah.
So it's a professional thing that kind of makes my parents happy that I'm not wasting money at college. Like, hey, I have a professional path if this doesn't
Yeah.
work out. And I'm also in doing the martial arts thing. I can use that as my sports journalism avenue. So I use
Mhm.
that. I was interviewing fighters. Frankie Edgar, I was interviewing some guys on his team, and it really sucked because we were supposed to interview Frankie before Frankie became Frankie Edgar. And I will always hold this over my
Dude.
friend at the time's head.
Yeah.
His battery died on his camera, and he forgot he did filming, and he forgot his extra, and so we didn't end up going over to Frankie's interview before he became.
That dude had such a good career
That's what I
after the
mean. This
fact.
is
Yeah.
before that, like when Kurt Pellegrino, like I could name guys all day. This
Yeah.
is how old I feel and how long I've been doing this sport to name guys that nobody who even watches UFC now is
Dude,
gonna
I was
is gonna
picking
know the name.
him as a fighter when I was doing leads. I'm trying to
Okay.
remember the website. It used to be a website, like an MMA website.
Yeah.
And they would have all the amateur fights, the UFCs, the Bellators, and like they had fight leagues where you were on a league,
Paid
on a
potato?
team. No, similar, very similar. But and then you would go through it, you would go through and you pick the fighters who you would thought were going to win, based on their win losses, whatever stats they would give you. And some of those guys, up and coming guys at the time, really wasn't a whole lot out of there. So you were just shooting from the hip, like I kind of like that dude's nickname. That's a cool nickname. I'm going to go with that guy. He's a killer. He's a killer.
This guy's nickname sucks. I'm not going here.
Yeah. So you would just like, and then at the end of the following Monday, they would tally, and your league, your team would win. You didn't win shit, but it was just a really cool, fun thing to do, right? And that was just so fun. But I was picking Frankie Edgar before he was Frankie Edgar on a lot of things because like I had seen one of his amateur fights, and it was just like damn, did the other dude like he knew he was coming into a fight, right? And apparently he didn't, because Frankie Edgar, like, he was done. I was like, damn, this fight
Frankie
didn't even get
actually,
started.
he competed over the week. Oh, maybe it was 2 weekends ago, but recently in the Real American Federation. Talking to my dad
Okay.
about this actually, like right before I came here, my son was at T-ball, because he knows him too, and you can just see the wear and tear on his body. Like I said, he moved like an
Yeah.
old Italian man. I don't mean that like disrespectfully. It's just you see the
Yeah.
punishment, and he's only in his 40s. Like the
Yeah.
inability
As they say, the
to
dude's the
move,
same
like
age as me, I
know,
think.
yeah. And he it was like his neck wasn't moving, and he still coaches at Rutgers,
Mhm.
wrestling, but you can see the wear
He's
and
a
tear on
Jersey
his
boy.
body.
I forgot about
Yep,
that. Yeah.
yep. Well, as I am as well, so that was the extra little push on like trying to
Okay.
get Frankie as other guys. So that's
You
the
a North
connection
Jersey
there.
guy or a South Jersey?
South Jersey, we don't consider from down here. We don't like North Jersey. They're
That's
a
Lower
whole
New
other
York.
type of people.
Lower New
Yeah,
York, eh?
basically. Go Birds. But yeah, so wanted to be the next Mayhem Miller. So I wanted to write, and that was going to be my pivot point. So I went to the
So
sports
you
journalism
wrote for
thing.
Bloody Elbow, so
Yep, wrote for Bloody Elbow. That actually came later on. That came after EFC. Like I had a journey where I went from doing it was a small sports blog called Hit the Ropes. They did pro wrestling, and
mhm.
I was one of the
They're
people
still
who
on Facebook, so I believe.
yeah, they're still active on pro wrestling. The
Yeah.
MMA stuff stopped
Yeah.
around the time that I stopped writing. It was me and another guy, and then from that I ended up getting into comics journalism, which I was like, if there's anything that's going to teach me how to break in, it's going to be writing about comics and talking to creators and seeing what their tips are, what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that led me to getting a spot on Comic Reviews Weekly with Ain't It Cool News, for anyone who remembers Ain't It Cool. And then from
Yeah.
there, I just started going to conventions. I started interviewing creators. I got to interview Scott Snyder when Witches like just came out. And he
That
just
was
was like,
not that long ago, wasn't it?
well, that was like 2013, 2014. He was
Okay, okay.
just,
I'm thinking about a different one. Because
oh
Boom
yeah, this
just
was this
released a
was
title named Witches as well, but that was like earlier this year. Late
yeah,
last
this
year,
might be
early this year.
this might be the sequel, or this might be have been like a relaunch. But what I
Yeah.
think it was called Witches. It was that book that he was coming out with. He had just finished up some stuff with Batman, so he was getting famous. Like that was one of the first interviews I did. I was at New York Comic Con. I got to interview Mike Tyson, um, like the cast of Black Sails. Like that was where I spent a lot of
Black
time.
Sails
Every
is
time I talked,
criminally underrated.
oh, it was a great show. I was really sad that it was such a short
3 seasons,
lifespan.
man. And
Yeah,
the third season was cut short.
I actually used one of their death scenes in the comic series that I wrote. It was my first comic series, The Six Swords, in our fourth issue that we never
That is
got
a
released.
perfect segue, because that was going to be next. You've worked on projects, The Six Swords and Kayfabe Volume 3.
Yes. So The Six Swords was my first creator-owned book. That was my first comic. I did it with two other people I went to high school with. It was kind of a group thing where we originally came up with the idea. Well, actually, one of my friends, he came up with the idea about basically a drunk apocalypse. This was like 2012. He got drunk and he's like, "Oh, what happens in the apocalypse?" And he kind of designed some ideas around our friends. I was like, "Oh, it's a really cool idea. We should come up with a comic." Because like at the time, this is when I was super deep into the comics journalism thing.
Mhm.
I was doing press coordination and a lot of events for a site called Comics First. Still writing for Ain't It Cool News. I'm doing interviews. I'm doing all this stuff, and that was the pivot point where I was like, okay, this could be my first thing. So we built it around to start off as almost like a Venture Brothers kind of homage that
Yeah.
turned into more of a Tarantino-esque story. So we did 2 Kickstarters for that. They
Shaun of the
funded
Dead, but a little bit more
successfully.
serious.
Yeah. Still lots of jokes and lots of ridiculousness in
Yeah.
it, but it was more serious, less of kind of the more serious. I'm trying to think of the word. Kind of homage is the right one. I'm not gonna think of it. I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's bothering me that I can't think of it.
It's all
But then I
good.
did
We'll
Cake
press. We'll
Bob
press.
uh,
Yeah.
as an anthology. I did 2 shorts in that. Those were the first book that I kind of did to learn how to write comics, learn to do a
Mhm.
Kickstarter. Spent a lot of time and money that I will not see back for a while, and I finally have, I won't say broke even, but recovered in a lot of ways. That's the one thing about
Yeah.
indie comics that most people don't realize. For a single book, like a decent book with a good artist, a good letter, a good colorist, all that stuff, costs anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 a pop. And you're not making that back off your first book. Now you might make some of it back on a Kickstarter, but then when you start adding in the cost of production of the book, and then the
Yeah.
goodies you're giving out in the
Quality of
Kickstarter,
paper,
quality of paper, like all that stuff starts.
all that.
Yep, it adds up. And like when you're talking like real dollars and cents, we did a 3-issue book. Now again, granted, I'm doing it with 2 other creators. It came to about 15 to 18-ish thousand. Again, broken up between 3 people, but that's a lot of credit. And I did K-Fob. I tried to come up with another book I had 2 artists ghost on me, so I had a lot of issues with that. So I took a lot of time in between, we'll say, my last 6 Swords Kickstarter and the Mafia versus the Klan. I spent a lot of times on script, a lot of time doing courses, editors, trying to rebuild my monetary value. I got a literary agent because I don't genuinely have a lot of time to do a lot of things, and I want her to push the book, a children's book. So I call it my, in anime, you have like the training arc where the person goes from like
Yeah.
15 years old to 25 years old. That's what I've kind of considered the last like 7-8 years of my quote unquote career, because I went from doing all this stuff, going to like a convention a weekend, trying to push the 6 Swords, being into every little book that was going on in comics, getting like 20 books in my pull bin, listening to every little thing. If it was trending on comics Twitter, I was in it somehow, paying attention to it and just
Yeah.
super deep into everything I could be. And then life changed, family, kids, work, stuff like that. And again, not being able to produce a book and having artists ghosts on you, I spent
Yeah.
this time working with an editor. It's really been one editor, Drenna Joe. She's done a lot of work for SourcePoint. I met her through Dirk Manning, who Dirk, again, I will say this in every interview. I will probably say this for the next 30 years of my life. Hands down, Dirk's been the best mentor, guide. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in any position that I am currently now in my career. And I'm not even talking just SourcePoint. I just mean understanding the industry, understanding how to produce a book, how to conduct yourself, so many different aspects. But through him, I met Drina, and I worked on 3 or 4 different scripts and books with her. This is really the one that just happened to make it out the gate, that got noticed, and they got me the deal with SourcePoint. And I have a couple other 2 or 3 others that are ready for production, already have some art, already have something, because the literary agent just did not work out. So yeah.
No, dude, I like it. And let's actually dive into the project, because I was telling you beforehand as we were talking, I was like, dude, the moment I seen the title of this book, I'm like, we're talking about this one. Like, this is just one of those where, and then you realize the family history behind it. And SourcePoint Press, who I hadn't heard from SourcePoint Press since 2022, when they had that big thing at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I actually have the SourcePoint Press box that they were selling with all the comics in it. I actually have that sitting right over here with the books still in it. The only thing I did was pull the bullets bag and board them and put it back in and put the box back up there.
That will be a collector's item one day.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's literally sitting on the top shelf over there. Now, granted, I do have, the Arc 170 sitting on top of it, Lutz X-Wing.
Just add to the aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a box of Legos that I have nowhere to put that are already built. I'm just waiting for shelf space to clear up. And then eventually they will make it onto a shelf somewhere. But no, it's really cool. And so when I've learned that this was SourcePoint Press, I was like, they're back. Granted, they probably never went anywhere, but I just hadn't seen them like on the shelves and stuff like that. Like, I hadn't seen them being featured heavily at Comic-Cons and stuff since San Diego in 2022. And so I was really excited when I seen like, SourcePoint Press. I was like, oh, nice. Yes. because I know the type of quality and stories they push out, and I was really excited about that. But this title immediately just stops you in the tracks. So what is the Mafia versus the Klan exactly?
Now, I'm telling you right now, if the title alone does not sell you on this book, I don't know what will. Like, the title alone should just, that
I
is
mean,
my elevator
your
pitch.
press
That is
package
my
did a pretty
sales
good
point.
job.
Well, that does a good job, but if I'm talking to anyone, it's like, I've got a comic and it's called The Mafia versus the Klan, and you're not instantly like, tell me more. Then
Yeah.
I've done something wrong in my marketing. I should have mentioned this before. I apologize if I sound a little nasally. My daughter, I thought it was allergies. She 100% gave me a small head cold, and I can feel it. So
Mm.
I might not sound funny, but I think I sound funny, so I'm apologizing for that.
I
The
can't hear it on my end, but
Okay,
I know what you
cool.
mean, because I literally had that for like a month back during earlier this year, and I just felt nasally no matter what. It was a horrible feeling. Then I finally found the right decongestant that broke it up and cleared it out for me, and I was just like, oh, I'm like,
Nice to breathe again.
yeah, I could breathe again. I'm like, this is nice. I don't sound like a mouth breather.
That's what I think I sound like now. I'm glad it doesn't sound that bad.
No, you
But
don't.
yeah,
You don't.
Source Point was gone for a period. I won't go into like the details, but like many independent publishers, they got hit hard with COVID.
Yeah.
It killed a lot of really good companies, and luckily Source Point was able to make it out. That's when Dirk Manning, if you're not aware, for those people who do know, he recently became the publisher and kind of ahead of that. I've known Source Point when I was doing the Six Swords. I actually
Yeah.
pitched them probably like 2016, 17, 18 on the book. I got declined. I got told no. But I see those guys all the time at
Mhm.
conventions. Great group of guys. I can't say enough good things about Josh.
Yeah, I would love to
You
have him
know,
on the podcast to kind of talk about that.
oh hey, I'll
Yeah,
mention it to Dirk.
yeah. See if you'd like to come on, man.
I
I'm booking right.
guarantee
I
he
got
would.
one spot left in July, and then I'm booking August, of course. But I would love
Well,
to have him on to talk about that journey, and specifically and how he managed to survive COVID, and and showing the boss, man. Because I don't know if he's seen. Like, hang on one second. I'm gonna grab this because it's
yeah,
so
go grab
cool.
it. Yeah, grab it. Yeah.
I need to seriously dust that shelf. But yeah, that's it right there.
That's beautiful. That's very nice.
And like I said, all the books are still in here. All I did was bag and board them. But yeah, Little Red Ronin. I believe that's the whole run in here. Yeah, that was book 3, then book 2, and then book 1, and then Cold Dead Hands. Cold Dead Hands. And this was such a good read too. And the next one, believe it or not, this book took off. Like, I think Image ended up picking this one up. But The Curse of Cleaver County, such a good read. This is so good. Then They Came from Beneath the Sea. This was a fun read too. And then Gloomhaven. And then Warcorns. Look at that. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's unicorns.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 there. Hang on, they're stuck together. Good Boy,
Yeah.
which
yeah.
was really freaking good too. I think I got that whole run.
I can't. can't, if I saw his name, I'd remember. But the artist
Pink Lemonade.
actually looked to do a kid book with him. His
Blanche, Wallace, and Lentz. I believe Lentz. And then this book right here was also really good. Franklin and the Ghost. Amazing book. Franklin and the Ghost. This one is Gun, Taurus, and Cannon. But yeah. That's everything that came in their last one they did at San Diego Comic-Con.
What's interesting about that, and then I'll segue into talking about the Mafia versus Klan. So the big thing with SourcePoint now is they're getting away from floppies. And I'll give my little spiel. It was kind of funny that I was talking. This is the last New York Comic. This was the first New York Comic Con I've been at like 6 years, and it was the last one I was at in 2024. I was talking to him, and we're talking about kind of the industry as a whole, and again how COVID hurt SourcePoint. This was where they hurt a lot of independent publishers. So what a lot of times would happen was, when we're making up numbers here, you'd be an independent publisher. Action Lab is kind of like a great example of this, and some other ones as well. You might pay, let's say you're going to prepay for 5,000 books, or you're paying a page rate. You're doing all this prepay stuff on floppy. Well, the book only sells 20 copies. What are you going to do with that other 4,000? You're also out money on your page rate and whatever else is that you never made back. So all these independent companies they'd create floppies or the graphic novels or whatever, and they would pay money out ahead of time, or buy all these books and then never make. You're in the red. Anyone with any kind of math sense, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you're 100% almost in the red.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's no way you're going to survive, especially when COVID hit, all those problems.
Yeah.
SourcePoint's moved away from that. It's basically like you create the thing and we put it out to the world. That's the simplest way that I can put it. And they're all graphic novels. So it's a lot easier for them to sell a graphic novel in a store, whether it's a comic shop or Barnes & Noble or Amazon or wherever they're selling it, with a big, thick book. So for anyone interested in pitching a SourcePoint, pitches are open, but that's what they're looking for. Is they're only going with graphic novels from now on. It's easier to sell. You don't have to sell multiple floppies, and this whole, when you start getting into the math, it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially for an independent publisher. But as far as the Mafia versus Klan goes, there's a very strong mix of fiction and nonfiction. And it all started because my dad was watching an episode on the military channel called Mafia vs. KKK. And he had watched the episode and he came back to me. He's like, "Oh, that'd be a really good idea for a comic." And I was like, "Yeah, it would." So I ended up watching the episode, and it just got my brain firing. I'm like, how can I do this? And I know in my own family's history, I knew there was some stuff that happened with my grandfather and the KKK. So I started talking to family relatives, all this kind of stuff. Well, I built out a 5-page script for the Comics Experience Intro to Writing course. And it started off as 5 pages, and it kind of built the structure that's now 120 pages whole.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. Then I kind of let it sat. I came up with an idea. We'll call it the original script. And it was a little bit different than what I went with now. Well, I found that I qualified for dual Italian citizenship. And this is where a lot of things really changed as far as the direction of the book, because of what was going on in my life. So I'm doing a lot of research on family history because I got to get documents. I got to prove this person never got rid of their citizenship, or this person came here then to put together this package for the Italian consulate. And I'm finding there was this story that had gone through my family on my dad's side for a while. It was very vague and it was very loose. It was basically, he had a sister, she died. My grandfather witnessed her die, and everyone was unsure whether the bullet was meant for my grandfather or was meant for his sister. Also, was it a lover? Was it someone? There was all these it was always someone was rejecting somebody. If there was a man either rejecting my great grandmother Felicia or Augustina, who ended up dying, but we were never really sure because the only person who told this story was my grandmother. My grandfather never spoke about it. They only knew he had a sister that died. Well, I was going through an ancestry scrub, and this document came up that said Augustina, it got pinned, or whatever you want to call it, clicked to my grandfather, connected. And it said Augustina Massari, and it was a death record. And it was from the Philadelphia police, and it was like shot in the back 3 times, such and such day. I'm like, holy crap.
Dude, that's an execution.
What's that?
Shot in the back 3 times, that's an execution.
Which is interesting because that was something the lawyer actually used. this ended up going from like this small vague thing to something that was covered like statewide, and that was actually something that the defense lawyer was like, oh, it was a crime of passion, or it was self defense or something. It was self defense, and the prosecutor was like, this was shot multiple times in the back. That's an execution. So that was interesting that you mentioned that, because that was in the documents. So I find out her name. I show my dad. He's like, I had no idea her name was Augustina. My dad never said anything.
Mhm.
Him, my aunt, they never knew Augustina's name. So it started this rabbit hole of research and information. I am finding out that Augustina's death was this giant thing in Philadelphia. They had a procession. I don't know what street it was. It's not Broad Street, but it was one of the main streets.
Yeah.
There was people who were actually trying to lynch, stone, kill her killer. They were trying to break the police car that he was in. They were throwing rocks. They were trying to rip
Mhm.
him out. It was a very big deal, and it was covered for a while. I ended up finding a
Yeah.
Facebook post on the Eastern State Penitentiary page of a picture of my grandfather. Nobody ever saw. He's 10 years old. He's sitting there with his brother and his grandmother, or his mother, my great grandmother, who's passed out on a chair because she fainted. They had brought her back to the crime scene, I guess, to confirm some things, and she had passed out. And whatever newspaper was there snapped this picture. And it's my grandfather at 10 with glasses. That's on the Eastern State Penitentiary page. We had no idea existed. Um,
Mhm.
so that learning a lot about Augustina and her death and everything that surrounded it
Yeah.
really inspired these little details that I had about my grandfather and his interactions with the KKK. It was the 60s. He was down south with my dad. They were living in Chesapeake, and he had a restaurant that he owned, and it was picketed by the KKK. They were getting really pissed off that he was spending time with his workers. His workers were African American. He's African
Yeah.
American. He was eating lunch with them, driving them places, just hanging out with them. As far as the interactions, besides those kind of like the picketing and just knowing there was issues, my dad doesn't remember a whole lot because he said he was like 6 or 7. So memory
Yeah.
is not going to notice everything going on. He said there was an incident that he does remember where there was like a guy, and he says it's like the most stereotypical like big southern country guy you could think of, like overalls up
Yeah.
to his nipples, and just
Yeah.
heavy heavy drawl, that kind of thing, who basically told my grandfather to get out of town, and my grandfather told him in so many words to screw off. They called him Big Yank when they were in Virginia, and that kind of inspired the KKK angle of the story. Now, as far as the mafia end, my grandfather was not in the mafia. However, as I continued to do family research, I learned more. Um, he knew a lot of mafiosos. He actually saw, I don't know how many, but it was at least a handful, or we'll just call it a decent amount of different hits and stuff that happened in Philadelphia at the time. And I've really started to better understand my grandfather as a person and feel really bad for him and the stuff that he experienced. He saw his
Yeah.
sister death at 10. He was watching people be killed, mafia hits
Yeah.
in the street. So after he had the traumatic experience with his sister, he's seen people die from mafia hits. So he went through a lot as a kid, but he knew the guy named Frankie Flowers, who is not in the mafia. He was actually, at least according to newspapers, he was whacked by the mafia. Now you can watch some videos of some people who are still alive who will say that never happened and the guy was never part of the mafia. That's, I'm not getting into that, but he
Yeah.
was associated with the mafia as a bookie. And to some level, and my dad's not really sure, he also knew someone who was one of the Philadelphia mafia leaders. He was in charge of the mafia, or at least in Philadelphia for a period. His name was the Chicken Man Testa. Uh, I don't know what level, and
Yeah.
my dad doesn't know either, whether it was like first name basis or because Italian enclave, especially when my grandfather grew up, everyone knew everyone.
Mhm.
Or was it even associated to his sister's death? Because his sister's death was so big, my grandmom lived in a whole other, who ended up marrying, lived in a whole other side of Philadelphia, a different kind of Italian American enclave. She heard
Yeah.
of the murder too. So, like, it was a big deal in the city at the time. It was heard about by a lot of people. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but the Chicken Man Testa knew my grandfather, knew of him. They had some kind of level of relationship. The bigger relationship was Frankie Flowers, who again was not mafioso, but he has been allegedly connected as a
Yeah.
mafioso bookie and was hit by the mafia. And I say that And this is something my dad and I were talking about the other day because I'm doing so much with this book. So my grandfather had gotten fired from a job, or he quit or something, and he was up in New York, and he was coming back. And he was looking for a job, and supposedly he went to Frankie Flowers for a job. Now he ultimately did not end up taking the job because he's like, "Oh, my son's trying to become a cop. I don't want to get involved with that." But the fact that he could be away for like 15 or 20 years and go to Philadelphia, get offered a position, or I don't know if it's he asked Frankie or Frankie offered it to him, but even to have that
Mhm.
level of ability to have something offered to him,
Yeah, that
meant
personal relationship.
it's after 15, 20 years, like you're not doing that with you're not walking
Yeah,
into that situation without knowing this person at some
yeah,
intimate level. So, and those are the only two names that my dad remembers. He said they used to walk the streets of Philadelphia, and "Hey Monk, how you doing?" And that was my grandfather Mario's nickname was Monk. "Oh, hey, how you doing, Monk?" Like, everyone knew everyone when they would walk
yeah.
the Italian sections of Philadelphia when my dad was a kid. So he knew people. What level, I'm not really sure. But taking all that information, I combined it into the story that's the Mafia versus KKK. So there's a mix of things that actually happened to my grandfather that I learned about that I threw in there. There's Spoiling this a little bit, and I apologize. If you haven't seen John Wick yet, they kill the dog. He gets really mad. He goes out and kills people. Well, in my story, it's a similar way. I use the death of Augustina as kind of the linchpin and the pivot point of the story to then push the character in the book's war against Klan, and kind of having to take on the aspect of everyone can say the Klan's bad. That's a black and white, but the Mafia kind of lives in a gray area where it's like, oh, are you defending the people in this area? Are they really bad? Like, depending on who you ask, kind of thing. Where he
Yeah.
essentially has to make a deal with the devil to get the justice that he feels he is owed, or not owed is the wrong term, but he feels is right for his daughter who's now been killed. He feels like that's the only way to get justice because the police aren't working with him. No one's helping him, and he's an Italian immigrant in the 1930s, or
Yeah.
1920s. Not a lot of options there, so it was like, hey, I got to make this deal in order to get justice for my daughter, kind of thing. But the death of Augustina, real life, was something that just impacted my grandfather until the day he died. He was having nightmares, like night terrors, when my aunt was getting a divorce because he thought her husband was going to end up killing him. My cousin remembers just kind of waking up at night, going like getting a glass of water from the kitchen, and my grandfather just sitting on a couch smoking a cigarette, just kind of like dazed out. Like it was something that was tough for him his entire life. And finding out how big it
Hmm.
was in the city, that's even crazier. Like you just didn't
Yeah.
talk about it back then, and it was a vague story. And now it turns out to be like this was a statewide story for years.
Yeah.
So I hope I
Yeah.
covered everything with that. But that's kind of the crutch of it is I'm taking all this family history, I'm combining it into this narrative, and at the minimum, if you're not interested in the mafia versus the Klan as a narrative and all the action that you can get
Mhm.
implied from that kind of title, then I just can't sell you.
No, I mean the pitch you gave me in the email when you originally sent it over to me, I was like, oh yeah, dude, like we're doing this one. This is too good. And I love the fact that you were able to roll in like some of your family history and your grandfather's history as like a homage to your grandfather, like a love letter to your grandfather, as like, hey, some of this stuff is what my grandfather experienced. And then of course you got to exaggerate some stuff, right? It's a comic book. You literally do whatever you want within the pages of the graphic novel or the comic book. But the fact that you were able to bring in some of your family history, your real life family history into this story just makes it's more meaningful to you, but at the same time, it gives other people a personal connection to that as well. You know, like that's
I'm
a
actually
good
glad
buy
you said that,
into it.
and I'm gonna steal it, but this is 100% like a love letter to my family and to
Yeah,
my grandfather, and the pride that I find in him, I have in my
yeah,
I mean, as well as my dad too, but like him in particular, like my Italian heritage, my Italian American heritage, my pride in that is from him. And this is 100% a love letter to him. I've got issues, and I've talked to my aunt about this, my dad, because they, in the process of me doing this book, they've gone through, I don't want to call it PTSD, but they've come to understand their
yeah,
father at a different level because there's a lot of stuff they didn't know. They didn't realize, like, the newspaper
Men in
articles
that era didn't talk about what happened to them on a
no.
personal level. You were
And
lucky
if
to
it
get
wasn't,
a hug, a handshake, I love you, or any of the above.
yeah,
But you knew
and
they cared about you. And that's the one thing they always made sure. They may not have showed it, but they cared about you.
oh yeah, they and my grandfather was that way. He was a big bear. It was just like these details. They were not talked
Yeah.
about. I even talked to my grandfather had three siblings. The oldest was Augustina, then his brother Joe, my uncle Joe, and then him. My uncle Joe, I talked to his family. He didn't tell anyone anything either. They were actually really appreciative that when I found out this information, I provided to them of how serious this was. The short end of the story is there was a man renting a room out in my great grandmother's house. My
Mhm.
assumption
It was
is
common
my
then.
well, my great grandfather had died. So my great grandfather Eduardo passed away when my grandfather was 3. So my great grandmother Felicia, who spoke next to no English until the day that she died, had to raise my great aunt Augustina, my uncle Joe, and then my grandfather. So she had 3 kids, no English in the Great Depression. So again, armchair historian, she's probably renting out the room to pay her bills because she was also
Yeah.
making wine as another job. My grandfather was also working selling newspapers at like 8, 9, 10 years old to make money for the family.
Yeah.
Well, they had this guy who was renting a room in the house for I believe it was like 10 years. It was around the time that Augustina was, when I did the math, was about 7 or 8. He probably moved in up until the time she was 16. Well, at some point, this guy started to push his weight around. He was trying to boss the kids around. And supposedly, at least again, according to the newspapers I read, he hit one of the kids. And that's when my great grandmother Felicia was like, all right, you're out, get out. So the guy left. He saw them at church. He tried to talk to Augustina. She ignored him, basically told him to screw off. That pissed him off. He came back to the house late. He basically said, there's going to be a crep at your door. Now, I forget the meaning of this, but there was a podcast I did, or a podcast I did research on my aunt when I brought it to them a while
Yeah.
ago. And they did a whole research on what that meant. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, that's what he left them with. And it's in the newspaper. I'll leave a crep at your door. So he goes back to the house at some point. He tells my grandmother, hey, I left paperwork up in my room. Can you go get it? Well, she goes up in the room to go get it. Augustina's in the kitchen. He fires the 3 shots into her back. My grandfather's asleep at the table because he's 10 years old and he's been working all day. And
Yeah.
he wakes up. He sees her shot and killed. He grabs a kitchen knife and then he chases her murderer, who has a gun, out into the
Yeah.
street. And then that's when like they go and get the neighbors. And then you have like the mob of the community trying to go out and chase, find, and kill this guy. He was even there's newspaper articles I found that again, I gotta like preface this. My grandfather's 10 years old and he's jumping at the guy when they're doing like the police interrogation, like
Yeah.
they're doing court proceedings. Like there's articles about the 10-year-old brother jumping at this guy, threatening to kill him. Even up to the point when this guy was getting released, he was able to get off of death row and like, basically get probation life, like 20, 30 years, and he was coming off. Again, my assumption, armchair quarterback, is that he knew somebody from from the block, someone from his community who's working at the corrections facility or the penitentiary, wherever this murderer was
Yeah.
at, reached out to him and was like, hey, man, he's about to get out. I want to make sure you're not going to try to kill him. My aunt says it was probably likely due to him having a family and not wanting to affect his kids. But up until the point where this person was still alive and getting out, you know, people were still checking
Yeah.
on my grandfather, like, hey, you going to murder this dude? Like, we know what you did before. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, love letter to my family, love letter to my grandfather. It's built uh, an increase with me and my dad as far as our dynamic. We always had
Yeah.
one, but like the connection for him and his
Yeah.
sister, like it's been a big learning point for them to understand their dad and the trials that he went through at 10 years old, to see this murder, to see what happened, to see this death. And again, to be a kid grabbing a kitchen knife and trying to kill a guy with
Yeah.
a gun, like that's wild stuff. And then again,
You know,
after
it's
seeing the
kind of
mafia,
good that he didn't catch up to him and kill him because
yeah,
at the time, even as a 10-year-old,
yeah,
he would have got tried for that guy's murder and probably went to life for prison or went
yeah,
to, just because of the way things were then. especially with his family being immigrants.
Yeah, and you see some of the language. And what makes it weirder, and I forgot to touch upon it, is this guy's like in his mid 40s. My great aunt was 16. He's talking about the
Yeah,
reason that he killed her was because she was talking to other boys. Like when you start adding in the layers, one, I'm pretty sure the guy was like manic bipolar, schizophrenic, or some
yeah,
serious mental illness. Because if you look at the articles and the interviews and the information, the guy goes from up to down to up to down.
yeah,
1 second he's like they call him frantic. Another he's like calmly sleeping at an interrogation table. The dude's all over the place. But when you think about it, this dude's in his mid 40s and he's talking about loving a 16-year-old girl who, when he started living there, was probably like 6, 7, or 8. Like
hmm,
I got really like skeeved out, probably like a tame term, reading this. Like, was he potentially like a pedophile and like stuff was happening in
yeah,
the house my great grandmother didn't know about? Like, there's just a lot of details that I can only look
yeah,
and take the information that I'm looking at a newspaper from over 100 years ago. I don't have any firsthand accounts, and just feeling bad, not only my grandfather, but my great grandmother, my great aunt. She was 16 and lost her life for no reason. Even my
yeah,
great grandmother, my dad told me a story. He's like, I'm pretty sure I know why she reacted this way now, hearing about this death. Their dog ran out to the street, got hit by a car. And he was like, my great grandmother, or for him, his grandmother, was wailing over the dog, like basically having like a mental breakdown. And you have to think, my great grandmother, she lost her husband, she lost her first child. And on top of that, she lost her daughter and she was murdered. And now you're seeing your dog die in front of you. Like that's
yeah.
tough for people to deal with.
Dude, that's a sequence of events, man.
Yeah, it's wild. And going back to the love letter thing, this is a love letter to my family, but I also have a part of me that feels weird about profiting off of something that affected my grandfather in this way,
Yeah,
as well as my aunt Augustina. I can tell myself all day like I want to honor them and I want to,
yeah,
give life to her story, but at the same time, it's like my grandfather was alive. I know how much it would hurt him, but also, again, I say this as a positive way. I would think, and this is just knowing him and just probably making myself feel better, that if he's looking down on me, he's like, hey, he really cares about our family. He's done a lot of work and cares about this story. He's not looking at this as a money grab. It's like, hey, he's honoring our family and he would be happy, but only in death, because if he was alive, he'd have some
yeah,
words for
yeah.
me.
Which is a good segue because I want to ask you. So you're working with this family history, and there's some lines in there that you could probably cross, and you don't want to cross those. But how did you find this balance of honoring the truth and also building this story of fictional narrative? Because you got a good mix in there, but you have to balance that. How did you like kind of like know where it is, like, okay, I got to draw the line here. I don't want to put too much out there, but also I need this to feed this narrative.
Um, I think that the best way that I did it, the best way I approached it was I did it, and I'm saying this not kind of tongue in cheek, but like I did 2 years of history in college, and that's absolutely nothing. But approaching it from a historical perspective, one called academic, and having that background in journalism and having to structure story or an article in a certain way, I approached it in the same way that I would approach an article, like kind of here are the facts. Now, is that the
Hmm.
particular way? No, it was like this needs to be grounded. I actually gave an answer for an interview. It's like pro wrestling versus MMA. Pro wrestling is a work. It's staged. It has a predetermined
Hmm.
event, and the whole reason that you watch pro wrestling is because that it's a story, but you're being pulled into it, and it's
Yeah.
wild, and it's like, wow, all this crazy stuff happening. He got hit by the chair, but he was able to overcome it and come back. That's more like a movie. It's like Tarantino. It's entertainment, and it's over the top, and that's what brings it to life.
Yeah.
This is more like mixed martial arts. Like it's not predetermined. It's raw. It can fumble around. Like there's some fights that's like, whoa, that was super exciting. Other ones is like, holy crap, he was just a wet blanket for 3 rounds. It's terrible to watch.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
raw. It's
Yeah.
grounded. It it has that kind of fumblingness that makes it more raw. I approach this kind of from a mixed martial art perspective. It's raw, it's emotional, and to be honest, as the script went on, it started in one place. as I've gotten better as a writer, as I've gotten more into different theological elements, philosophical elements, different writing styles, researching a lot how writers that I care about and that look up to how they've done things. I tried to intertwine those, and really it was about infusing the emotions of how would I feel as a father if my daughter was killed, if my child was killed, no one was doing
Hmm.
anything about it. What lengths would I go to get my revenge? Would I just accept, hey, I can't do anything about it, or would I make a pact again, a pact with the devil to go, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything I can to get her justice. And that's the way it's portrayed. The mafia, I never wanted to do, and I say this before I wrote this, and then I ended up doing it anyway. I never wanted to do a mafia thing because of the tropes, the stereotypes, and that's
Yeah.
everything Italian American is mafia. I ended up doing it anyway, but the way I approach this is more like The Godfather. It's a cultural element. It's an
Hmm.
element that brings about the culture, but it's not anything that's glorified. The mafia, while they might be the people killing the true bad guys, aren't necessarily good
Yeah.
guys either. And that's presented in this where it's
Yeah.
and
The gray area there that you have to kind of
yeah,
stick to. And I know for a fact, like my grandparents, they were Chicagoans before they moved to Alabama, and they kind of did the back and forth thing. So I'm familiar with some of the things you're talking about.
yeah,
And those communities always have taken care of those communities, whether it was illegal or illegal according to who or what. But family bonds are family bonds, and Italians will take care of Italians, and the Irish will take care of the
yeah.
Irish. And
We're
it's just the
tribal.
way it's. Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so it's, yeah, dude. I'm excited to read this when it finally hits Kickstarter, and I get it in my hands, cause I'm gonna have to get it in my hands. But so there's a lot of stuff that we could get into. We can get into the bad guys, the good guys, but there's really no good guys or bad guys. Well, there's bad guys, but the good guys could also be bad guys depending on how you want to look at this. So you got this moral complexity, I should say. Like, how do you avoid making this a simple good guys versus the bad guys story? Like, because it's hard to do, because you can't really paint the mafia as good guys, because we all know from a historical, like, they're not really good guys. Like, they may do good in the community to some degree, but they're not good guys. And we all know the Klan are not going to be good people no matter what. You cannot look at them and justifiably go, oh, but they're good people. No, the hell they're not.
You
So,
can't do it with that one.
but
Uh,
again,
I'd say it would just be honest. I approached it from an honest perspective. I approached it from, again, trying to take how would I feel if this happened to me? How would I react as a father? And also, like, how would, if this was to happen, or if similar events did happen, like if you're going to make a deal with the mafia, what are they going to ask out of you? That's where I got into like the theological elements that I've already got it greenlit from Drina to do a second one. One of the
mhm,
reasons is Martin, who's doing the art, is doing a phenomenal job. He's the perfect artist for this book. It
yeah,
happened to be providence and luck that I found him. I was looking for a completely different book. I'd put up some ads on Reddit and Facebook and stuff, and he emailed me and he sent his art. I'm like, you're not right for this book that I put the ad up for, but I had this
yeah,
idea and this script. You are 100% perfect for this one. He's done such a phenomenal job. I almost
mhm,
felt like I had to do a sequel just to get him to do more art because he
yeah,
fits it so well.
yeah,
And then taking that style, that again, honest ability to tell things, I got really into the theological element. There's a lot of elements that we could talk are a culture clash, but a lot of the pieces of the book, Mafia versus KKK, are Protestant versus Catholicism. And I don't mean that like, hey, I'm truly saying Protestant versus Catholicism, but culturally and historically, like people always
yeah,
think, oh, black people, white people, brown. No, when the 1900s, the 1800s, it was about ethnic lines. It was about your religious lines. Like even within Protestantism, like if you were a Baptist and you were Presbyterian, people got violent about it. So
Yeah,
when the Irish came over, when the Italians came over, because they were Catholic,
Catholic.
there's lots of history about how Gangs in New York, it's a movie based off of real things
Dude,
that happened. That's how a lot of these things got.
criminally underrated movie. It is so good.
Great movie and a
So good.
real things that happened with
Yeah.
Protestants and Catholics fighting.
Yeah.
So taking that element of the Italian Catholicism and an immigrant coming in, and then the Klan being quote unquote Protestant. We don't have to get into like whether they're Christian or not, but that element of like you're bringing this foreign religion in, lining underneath the story of like the theological aspect of Christianity, redemption, selling your soul to the devil. There's a lot of parts where I really tried to play to the medium of comics. This probably would make a great movie, absolutely. But comics is a special medium with a special way of presenting things and telling story. Where like you'll get the issue of like a director will be like, my script sucked. I couldn't get my movie done, so I want to make a comic and then I want to make a movie. Well, that's not really coming in with the right frame of mind. Aubrey Sitterson,
Yeah.
he's been doing a
That's
bunch
my
of stuff
dude
for him.
right there.
Yeah, but his Substack, like I remember reading his Substack, he put up a piece about using on his current book, Free Planet.
Yep.
This is how I'm approaching this from an art perspective and using
Yeah.
the medium to its best ability to showcase X, Y, and Z. And that's how I approach this. How can I
Dude,
make
are
this
you reading
shine
Free
and
Planet?
I unfortunately I don't have the time. I see it. I'm like, oh, this looks beautiful. I gotta
Dude.
pick it up.
I think the
It's
first trade paperback just came out. Go
so
get that
that's
first trade
I'll say that's
paperback,
myself.
read it.
When I
And
go to get my son's
fuck,
comics, I'll grab that. I'll
dude,
grab the trade
it is
paperback.
so damn good.
That's
Like,
good to hear.
I remember when I was still doing new comic book days before I really transitioned
Yeah.
hard and just stopped new comic book day, and I'm focused only on indie creators and telling their journeys and their stories. But I read issue one of Free Comic Book or issue one of Free Planet on New Comic Book Day, and I immediately was just like, dude, if y'all don't pick up any other book at all, you have to hit up Free Planet, because at the end of the day, what does it truly mean to be free?
Well, that's so I will say Aubrey influenced me in a lot of ways. Looking at his Substack and the way this
Yeah.
is like pre-release, the way that he was
Yeah.
approaching that book.
I
Subconsciously,
think I read. I'm pretty sure I read the same one.
Yeah, he
I
was
read
putting
it
it out
too.
for a while. He's like, this is how I'm approaching the sequentials. This is how I want the art to look. Subconsciously and slightly consciously, it did influence me the same way. There's certain panels and ways that I wrote the script where, because I'm taking that theological element and the character Mario, as he's making decisions with the Mafia, he's crossing thresholds and the shadowings becoming darker because it's like he's crossing into
Mhm.
darkness, or there's elements of the Virgin Mary or the cross and certain things that are set up in certain places that Martin's going to show. Like there's the background of the divine, and the character of Mario is not saying, hey, I'm dismissing God, saying screw God, this you took my daughter from me. If anything, he's still acknowledging there's a higher power, but he is so willing to get justice on earth, to get
Yeah.
justice for his daughter. He doesn't care if he goes to hell. He'll willingly give that up and is knowingly giving up his soul because he feels this is the only way to wrong the rights
Mhm.
of the death of his daughter. So I try to take those heavier weights and throw it in there. And there's a redemption arc for him coming slightly. I don't want to. It's not like happy ending
Yeah.
Disney stuff, but I
Yeah.
also
No,
want
in
to
a
play with
story
the
like
fact
this, you
that
cannot
don't
expect the Disney ending.
no, and there's unfortunately not. It's not necessarily a terrible ending, but it's not a Disney ending. But there does need to be, if I'm playing with themes of Christianity, there does need to be what is, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim. The Old Testament element, the New Testament element is redemption. There's always the opportunity to turn things around. That turning
Mhm.
around might not end up in the best place for you, but you have the
Yeah.
opportunity of forgiveness. You have the opportunity of redemption, and that's what I want to show once I get to the second the Mafia vs. Clan 2, is to bring that full circle. So the first book is
Mhm.
very much based in I am knowingly making a deal with the devil, and I don't care if it costs me my soul. I am getting justice and revenge for my daughter.
Mhm. And I'm glad you brought up Martin earlier because that's where we're going next with this story. So this is a black and white noir visual style with selective color, which is one of my favorite styles. Like it absolutely 100%. I love this style of art with the splash of colors. My own personal book that I will be writing and have started piecing together is going to be done in that style. So what made that the right look for this story?
I at first, color seemed like when I first came up with the idea, color seemed right. But as I built it, it was like this would be really cool. Like if I'm gonna do a Mafia book, I should take it to like the 1940s and 50s, black and white TV. What would that
Mhm.
look like? And then as I'm building it out, it's like, oh, but I like color and I like splashes of color. And then I got the idea for Sin City, like Sin City does black and
Yeah.
white, but there's just splashes of color. And then as again,
Yep.
I'm learning as a writer and a creator play into the comic medium and to make it its strongest self, I was like selective color. And then as we've been playing with the color, as the pages are coming through, sometimes I'm like, the color doesn't work here. Now I know exactly all the pivot points of where I want color. I
Yeah.
want color. They're always going to be the same theme, but now they're a theme attached to something higher. You'll notice it throughout the book why certain things are colored the way that they are. They're always going to be the same red,
Mhm.
that Sin City black and white red. But what I thought it did is it brought another element of what makes comics so special is
Yeah.
you get that next level of art. It's a visual medium. I think it's Chuck Dixon. Someone I saw an interview the other day, and it's basically you come for the art, you stay for the writing. Well, in order for
Yep.
people to come for the art, I want it to be strong and use that what comics is so good at, and that's visual storytelling. And I think that just turns it up into such I don't want to sound douchey, but like artistically or
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing.
No, 100%. And I've always appreciated that kind of black and white storytelling. And then that just that pop of color, like where would you want the color, right? If somebody gets killed, you put the blood down, right? If there's a neon sign, you pop that neon sign, right? If somebody fires a weapon, you pop that fire from that weapon and show that weapon was fired. And it's just those simple adds and pops of colors. You keep the color palette small and around the same types of colors. You don't like go, oh, I'm going to throw a pink here for this neon sign. No, you pick a few colors, and those are the colors like you kind of stick with throughout the whole book. And that's like your palette. Like you pick your 3 color palette, right? And like I just absolutely enjoy those types of stories, and I wish we got more stories like that because they are done so well
Well,
if
and
they're
I
done
think if
properly.
done properly, I say this jokingly, this is not the motivation. It's also a lot cheaper. It's a lot less you got to pay full colors for a book.
Hey,
Again, I say that
if you're
jokingly.
gonna save it,
Uh,
if you're gonna pitch some pennies, I mean, there's where
yeah,
you
yeah.
pinch your pennies,
When you,
right?
especially as an independent creator, you got to watch your money. But no, this I think the problem is, and it's an often issue with comics, and I think a lot of people who, not all, they come in with the idea of a cinematic approach to comics.
Yeah.
They come in with the idea of movies. You need to come in to comics with what make like when you're reading a novel, why is the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, like universally adored throughout time? Because Tolkien is so expressive in his prose. The words that he uses paints his picture. That's
Hmm.
the strength of novels is the ability of the writer to describe, to make you feel and taste and hear via words. Comics are taking that same thing, but you're giving prompts to an artist to then take that and then make it visual. And
Hmm.
I've been using the analogy, and I think it works pretty well, is comics are like a football team. As the writer, I'm the quarterback. I'm not making the final play. I have the ball. I'm either handing it off or I'm throwing it downfield. And once I
Yep.
give it to my skill player is then taking that ball and doing their own thing. It's no
Yeah.
longer me, the quarterback, with the direction. It's I gave it to my wide receiver. He's then reading the rest of the field, scanning the play, doing whatever with the ball, and
Yep.
making his own play. Comics are the same way. Here's my script. I'm handing it off to you, the artist. It's your job to then interpret it in the way that you
Yep.
see. And to do that as a good writer, I have to know what is going to one, make the artist happy, because artists,
You don't
Alan
want to
Moore
make
is,
them upset because your art will look
you know,
like booty
it'll look
hole.
like crap. Well, that's what
Yeah.
a good point is, and this is something that I read in Dirk's Right or Wrong, was like you don't want to make them an art monkey. Alan Moore, yes, Alan Moore can put in his script, I want, this many little dots on a single orange, and I want it to be in this corner with this. He's
Yeah.
Alan Moore.
But he's
I'm
fucking
not.
Alan Moore.
Yeah, yeah, he's Alan. He can get
Yeah.
away with
But
that.
Alan
I
Moore
can't.
has that eye
Yes.
for that kind of stuff. He knows what he wants to see when his words go onto that paper with that art, with that color, with
Yes.
that
I
shading.
do not, and I am
He
okay saying
knows.
that and being like, "You're the artist. You know better. Here's how I see it. Please interpret it in the best way you think it's going to work visually,
Mhm.
because that's your strength. My strength
Yeah.
is the structure, the story, the direction, X, Y, and Z. Yours is making it happen on the page. So that's where I think that you don't see a lot of those color things or playing around with things experimentally, which is why I'm so happy to see and hear that Free Planet is so good, because reading Aubrey, I'm like, yes, this is what I
Yeah.
need to do. This
But
is what
he's
I
so
need to be.
smart, dude. He's I think I don't want to blow smoke up Aubrey's ass because he's so damn good, right?
Yeah.
And but he's just one of those guys like I never heard. Well, I think I had seen him on a couple of other things before Free Planet, but Free
Yeah.
Planet to me is like kind of like, oh, Free Planet just cemented him in my list, right? Like I see his name now on anything else, I'm gonna be like, you know what, it's Aubrey's. Let me give that a try because fuck, if it's half as good as Free Planet, it's freaking good.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
And he's very interactive on his social media. So if you at him, you're probably going to get a reply from him. So just putting it out there.
Well, I actually, when I was still on Twitter, when his early Kickstarters, the Kung Fu guy won, the Beef
Mhm.
Bros. Like I backed a lot of those. I talked to him. I asked him questions. I met him at a convention once. He might even remember my name. I don't know, but I've interacted with him a few times. Not in a long time. I'm hoping at a convention I can stop by and just
Yeah.
kind of thank him. Like there's very specific points in my career that I can go, this really influenced me in this way. Russell Nolte, he influenced me in a certain way of how I approached the business, where I read it. This is like 2014, 15. It took me forever to get to. He was always like, if you want to be a successful creator, and this is something you find from any business person, it just happened to be, he was the one who said it. So therefore it's stuck in my mind since.
Yeah.
That you need 3 sources of income, because if any leg drops, you still have the other 2 to stand on. And he was like, I
Mhm.
have this business, I have my writing, and then I have this, and this is how I stand on it. It took me years to get to the point where I had my own business. It's not a leg to stand on, but it has the future to eventually reach that point.
Yeah.
And then I got my full-time job, and then the third leg would be comics. Well, I can
Mhm.
say that Aubrey, and the way that he was laying out his approach to Free Planet through his Substack, explaining all this stuff, this was like my most recent click in the mind of like, yo, this is what I need to think and approach this medium with.
Yeah.
My more recent ones have definitely been Tolkien, and like I was a big Lord of the Rings fan, but like
Yeah.
really diving into the way that he approached stories, the way that he views stories,
Yeah.
his philosophy, his concept, his theology, his
Just
uh
remember, the Lord of the Rings and that whole freaking trilogy is a giant love story to his wife.
yeah, I mean, and that and his love story to his wife, love story to kind of his faith, and a love story
Yeah.
to kind of his love of mythology. And that's something where I'm now approaching, like I've got like Journey to the West. I've got, the poetic Eddas and stuff in my Amazon list I'm gonna start working through, because I personally feel that's where I'm now going to grow as a writer. It's, learning how to do the comics right, but also looking at the older stories, the Iliad, all those fun things that you don't appreciate as
Yeah.
a kid, to see what made
I
me so
have
strong and
reread the
grasp
Iliad
onto
as
someone.
an adult, and you will enjoy it a lot more as the Odyssey
Yeah,
the same way, right? You will enjoy it a lot more as an adult because you find yourself relating to characters that you're like, as a kid when you were forced to read it, you're like, man, fuck
you
that
ignored
guy.
it.
And then you get older,
Yeah,
you're an adult, and you're like, fuck, I can see why he wanted to do all that. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
100% sense. Like he wanted to kill that guy. Oh no, I can see that now.
But no,
Like
I
that's
get it.
understood
I
by
get it
me.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
that's
right
at
on,
least
dude.
where I'm at.
No, you're picking up some classics. Sometimes just good for the soul too. So, but
Well, it's
I
good
know
to be
we've talked
varied, and
about.
they always.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was
Mhm.
just to quote.
No,
We
go
we
ahead.
talked about like the like comics and stuff. If you're anyone, this it's funny. Like you see the trends where they go like this, and you start at this point, and then you basically end up coming back. Like when you first start writing, it's like write a lot and read everything you can, and then you get away from it. And I got really funneled into just comics. Well, now I'm at the other end, it's like I need to read a lot, and I need to read
Hmm.
other things from other mediums to
Yeah.
then strengthen the thing that I'm doing. So that's where I'm at in that journey to kind of
Yeah.
circle it there. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I feel you on that one because I mean, my second job is this, right? I get to talk to creators. I get to learn a different things almost every show, right? Like what works for one person. I'm like, oh, I might give that part of that a try because I kind of like what you're doing there. I'm not telling them this obviously, but down here I'm like, yeah, that's a good fucking idea right there. Let me get that. And it's just you take those tidbits of information and you kind of like, can you apply them to what you want and what you want to do? Like, how does it may work for them, it may not work for you, but hey, you're going to roll the dice. You're going to try it yourself as well. And but no, Aubrey has been like you can go back and you go find where I talked about Free Planet #1 on the podcast and go see everything I had to say about that book. And I have been like the dude going, hey, if you're not reading Free Planet, you're cheating yourself, especially in the world we live in today.
Well, I'm gonna
So
when now that I know there's a trade paperback, when I go to get
yeah,
take my son to get his pull bin, I'm gonna see if the trade's there and I'm gonna pick it up because
yeah.
I am genuinely excited hearing that.
No, I do believe they dropped the first just like a month ago, maybe. But earlier you talked about Martin, who was your artist, but you also have Dave Lentz as your letterer, and I think Drina
Drina,
is
yes.
your editor on this. And that's kind of like, especially Drina as your editor, is really like putting that final stamp. I'm like, okay, now this is ready for production. And they're also the person that kind of like, hey, what the hell's this? Like I see what you're trying to do here, but I think you were trying to do this. Like you need to get that to here, but you got to clean up some stuff right here. And kind of like, how did that whole team kind of help shape this book into what it is or what it will be when it is ready to go?
Funny that you say that because Drina does a lot of work with Joe or Drina Dirk does a lot of work with Drina. Uh, Drina's been his editor on a lot of projects, and he
Mhm.
nicknamed her the boss. So he always jokes about the boss told me this, the
A
boss told me
good
that.
editor
So
should be called the
yeah,
boss.
I've taken
It's
that moniker and I've
appropriate.
called her the same thing, the boss. So that's like an inside joke about Drina.
We're
It's
not
like
talking
she's
Bruce Springsteen here.
yeah, not talking
We're
about
talking Drina Joe, okay?
yeah. So Drina's great. I met her at a convention with Dirk. We started talking, and then as I started, this is probably like 2017, 18-ish. As I'm starting to build out these projects, I'm like, the next level for me as an artist is whether I like it or not, I need to pay the extra money for an editor. That's going to take me to the next level. So I reached out to her. We kept in touch. She liked my ideas, et cetera, et cetera. And she took me on. And I feel really good because I know Drina doesn't take everyone on. It was a combination of professionalism, how I carried myself, and then, just lots of other little things that I had
Mhm.
done that noticed her and she was like, yeah, I'd love to work with you. And since then, she's been on a children's book that we have ready to go. We have pitch pages done with an artist. He's the artist for Fred, or his name's Fred Stressing. He is the artist for Rick and Morty. We have like 6 to 8
I know who
pages
he is.
already
Yeah.
completed. Fred's
Yeah.
great. So we got to find a home for that. That'll be potentially a source point book in the future. We'll see. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. If I pitch it, she worked on that script with me. She worked on the Mafia versus the Klan. She worked on another script called Spirit. It's a supernatural book. That's
Mhm.
a lot of supernatural books. They're focused on a mature audience. I've described it as the anime Soul Eater meets Mike Magnola's BPRD, but it's focused
Ooh.
on teens. And the
BPRD
reason,
is so good.
oh, he's fantastic. I just
Criminally
watched a
underrated.
documentary on him on YouTube, and
Yeah.
I already liked him before, but now I went from like I like you to holy crap, I love you. You're amazing.
Yeah,
So
dude.
I'm like my level of fandom for him has greatly increased after this documentary.
Yeah.
But talking to when at the time it was my agent, and then talking to Dirk, who I was doing some consulting with, he was like, "Hey, all these books that everyone does their supernatural book, they're always focused on adults. Why not focus on teens? Like something that your daughter would be comfortable. Because sometimes you get a lot of sexuality,
Yeah.
a lot of adult themes, and like, I was a kid, I read stuff I shouldn't have done. But if you're gonna market it, like, why not make it directly for
Yeah.
teens?
Young adult
So
teens.
that
Yeah.
young adults, PG-13. So that's how that developed. And Drina's been on that. We're actually revamping the script a little bit, trying to get that as my next project for next year. But she's great. She's a lot of good feedback. Uh,
Hmm.
every page that Martin goes through. So the way that the process works is Martin will send me a thumbnail, a general concept for the page. I'll go, cool, let's do it. He sends me a finished page. I look at it. I send it to Drina. She either okays it or goes, hey, change this, fix that, whatever. We okay it. He okays it. He moves on to the next one. For the script, I mean, she's been fantastic. She's really helped me direct things. It's
Yeah.
writing is so much of a funnel, and you get so lost in what you are
Yeah.
doing and your own little isms and your own little bubble.
Yep.
You need that outside voice, but you need an outside voice that you trust and that has,
Yeah.
again, good vision. Adding to the football, metaphor, you're
Mm.
the quarterback. You can only see so much of the field. That you have one spot.
Yeah.
Your head coach, your offensive coordinator, the people on the sidelines, they have a whole other vision of the reads, the way the defense is
Mm.
reacting. That's what an editor
Literally
brings to
there
the table.
to kind of like, hey, dude,
Yeah,
like, where
direct
you
it
at
this
with
way,
this? Like,
change
what are you
this. Yeah,
doing? Yeah.
she
To
is,
make sure
and
you're on the topic you're supposed to be on.
be on topic. That doesn't make sense. Or, how
Hmm.
is this needle threading here? There's so many elements of having that outside voice.
Yep.
And Trina, she doesn't talk about, she's worked in other industries, editing and doing scripts and stuff like that. Uh, she has a lot of experience that she will never tell anyone about. But being able to spend that time with her and learn from
Yeah.
her, and the fact that she likes working with me, she likes my work, she says good things about me, makes me feel really good because it's like, oh, she's worked with some really up there people. And
Hmm.
to have her give me her stamp, that helps. And
Yeah.
like I said, every time I come into a project, she goes, ah, it doesn't make sense. I don't like that. And she's been brutally honest with me with some things, like no holding back.
Dude, that's what they're
I
there for, right?
appreciate it.
They're there to
Yes.
be brutally honest to you, and that's what you want out of an editor. And I know a lot of people out there can't afford an editor on their projects. However, I did an interview with Michael Williams, who's been editor on things like the Diary of Sweet Pea and a few other
Okay.
stories. He's also a comic book writer. But the episode I did with him is almost like a master class of writing and like editing and that kind of stuff. And so if anybody out there cannot afford an editor, go watch that episode on my podcast with Michael Williams. It is a master class
Worth
of,
it.
yeah, it's a phenomenal. He's wrote Wild Ani. He's done Shark Force. He's been the editor of Sweet Pea, which is a fantastic book on Kickstarter right now if anybody's interested in that one. But it is literally just like a masterclass on what it means to be an editor, and also having the background as a writer, but masterclass. If you can't afford an editor, watch that episode. You will immediately learn something. So just putting that out there because
I will recommend, if you can't afford an editor, put it on credit. And I'm not saying go in debt, but an editor will take you from having a good book to a great book. And I've learned that experience. Like with the Six
Mhm.
Swords, there was 3 people working together, so we're kind of self-editors. And one of my friends, he actually, I went to journalism school with him. He was actually
Mhm.
one of my editors at our school newspaper at the time. He ended up going on to work at Forbes, do video games. So he was
Yeah.
a really good editor in a way because he had that experience. But after that point, like what took my stories to a level that I can say a professional grade to get pitched,
Mhm.
and obviously at least some degree picked up, and also again exclusive. I got a second book signed contract for Source Point. I'm not going to say what that'll come in the future. So I have 2 titles that have gotten picked up. So that'll be a future interview.
Oh
To
yeah.
get to that point is only because I had an editor. So if you've got to change money or find a way, or even take longer to, you know,
Yeah.
put
It's
out
worth
your
it.
work, get the editor. It's worth it. It will get you
Hmm.
from being like, hey, I can't cross this finish line to actually crossing the finish line and then some.
Yeah. Even if you like, I've said this many of times on the podcast. I am here. I am a resource. I've literally interviewed almost 100 different creators out
Yeah.
there. I may or may not have learned a thing or two over the last couple of
Maybe,
years of doing
maybe,
what I
right? Just a
do.
little bit.
Yeah,
Just
maybe a
a
little
little
bit.
bit.
And I've always put it out there. Like, if you have questions on your Kickstarters, if you have questions on your story, does your story make sense? I have literally read several hundred, well, more if you count what I buy at like New Comic Book Day and that kind of stuff, but from creators just like CE here, creators like Mike Williams. Like, I've read their books, I've read their stories. Like, I have literally read hundreds of these Kickstarter type of books, and I am a resource. Like, reach out. I have no problems helping, you know, as just like another set of eyes, just to go, hey, I like what you're doing here, but over here, I noticed this. You may want to go back and fix this. Or, hey, your story is kind of like, there's some shit missing here. Is that intentional? Are you planning to do a flashback sequence later on in the story to fix this? Like, what's your plan there? See what I did there? Because flashback can fix anything. But no, I just wanted to bring up, because we were talking about editing, and I know a lot of people can't edit or afford that, but I do have another interview out there, and that was a masterclass. Like, I was sitting there like, no shit, I brought the notebook and the pen out, and as he was talking, I'm like, hell yeah. I'm like, about halfway through me taking notes, I was like, I'm recording this. I'm like, I'll just watch this back later and finish taking notes. And I literally watched it back again
Literally.
later and took the notes, you know. So I got like one of those journalist notebooks, and it's like probably 12 pages of notes that I took from that interview, because it was just that informative for people. So, but let's talk about Source Point and the Kickstarter, man, because I told you from the beginning when you emailed me, I'm excited because Source Point is back. They haven't, like, this is the first I've heard of them again since like 2022. So when you were like, oh, Source Point Press, I was like, what? Source Point Press is back?
Come back.
Because I remembered all the books in here, and I was just like, if they're producing anything similar to what's in this box, I'm all in. And now that I know it's graphic novels, you know what? I'm still all in, because let's go. But let's talk about that, man. How did you connect with Source Point Press, and like, kind of what does it mean to be kind of part of their, like, I don't want to call it a relaunch, but it's a relaunch kind of.
Relaunch. I know it's amazing. This is like, it's extremely fulfilling. I am beyond thankful for the opportunity from Dirk and Josh for lots of reasons. So, like I mentioned before, Dirk Manning has been my guide, my mentor, my guy, my big brother, whatever you want to call it from a comics perspective, for forever. My first NYCC, obviously, like I said, I'm doing comics journalism because I want to learn how to do comics. Well, they had a panel. It's like, this is how you get into comics, this whole whatever thing. Happened to be
Mhm.
Dirk was one of the speakers. He mentioned that, like most people do, hey, I've got this book, come to my table, come pick it up at the end of the panel. So I go mosey on over, and I'm telling you, I only had the idea to walk to his table, buy his book, and be gone and never see him again in my life.
Mhm.
However, one, Dirk's a good salesman, and two, I end up having a lot in common with him. I talked to him, I'm grabbing the book. He's like, oh, I see your press. Who are you here for? Now, I don't want to say ain't it cool news, because depending on who you are, gives you different
Yeah.
connotations of ain't it cool news. So I was like,
Yeah.
kind of sheepishly, shyly, oh, I'm here with ain't it cool news, and I'm trying to like get away from the booth. And he's like, I used to write for ain't it cool news. I was like, oh, really?
Mhm.
And we start talking, and it's like, I'm going to school for journalism. He's like, I was a journalism major. I was like,
Yeah.
really? It was,
That's
I'm a
cool.
martial artist. I'm a martial artist. This whole list of things. We got talking,
Yeah.
and he was like, hey, keep in touch, this, that, and the other thing. So I kept in touch with him. It was to do a follow-up interview with him. Doesn't exist anymore. It was called like NYC, like after something or whatever. They
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
did like mid-year comic convention, like a super tiny one, right off the
Hmm.
docks of the water. I forget whatever it's called. So I met him there. Relationship continued. Convention, doing interviews with him, backing his Kickstarter, paying the extra money to not only support him on his
Yeah,
Kickstarters, because he would have like consultation, like I'll read your script thing. I did a couple of those to support him, but also to learn from him.
yeah,
Built the relationship. He always had, excuse me, he always had
yeah.
this saying where it's like, if you're going to a comic creator's booth and you want advice, buy their book because you're paying for their time. Like that's like just a nicety to
A
do to them.
hundred
Like
percent, a hundred
ask them
percent.
whatever you want, but buy their book. And that's kind of every time I made sure, even though we're friends and we've got a close relationship, you're here to make money. I'm going to support you. I'm going to buy your book, and then we'll talk. And
Yep.
that's kind of the
And
relationship.
I see so many people though, like they'll go to the booth at a Comic Con to see an artist or a writer, and they'll bring books with them, which is great.
Yeah,
A lot of creators will like, sign 3 to 5 books or whatever. Just
yeah,
like you're a fan, they want to meet their fans, they want to interact with the people buying and supporting their stuff. I'm always been like, if I'm going to go to their booth and I'm going to talk to them and tell them like, hey, I really like what you're doing with X, Y, and Z, I'm going to buy something from them anyway because it's a respect thing. I respect your time enough to a pick a book from you and C, B, I want you to sign like my books that I brought with me and then just have a quick like conversation. It's always been about a respect thing, and it's like a courtesy almost. Like I'm not just going to drop a stack of comic books on, an artist's, table and be like, "Hey, sign this."
free
No,
while you're trying to sit there and work and make sales, and that's how they make a lot.
yeah,
But that's how I ended up meeting up. Source Point is as I came out with the Six Swords. Excuse me, Dirk started working with SourcePoint for a lot of his books. So when I would go to conventions, I'd go there to talk to Dirk, but then I would meet the SourcePoint guys. I met Josh, I met Travis, I met Drina, and all these different artists and creators of that time period. And like I said, I pitched the Six Swords to them through whatever
yeah,
their publishing thing. It got denied, but I still kept in touch. I love the guys. I love their energy. I
mhm,
loved everything about them, and it was on my bucket list. Like I want a book to come out with Source Point. Fast forward, I know Dirk. I'm talking to stay in touch with Dirk.
yeah,
Here he became the publisher. Hey, congrats, this is awesome. And I'm just like, hey, in the future, I'm gonna pitch to you. Like, what are you guys expecting? He told me, he's like, look, this is what we need from you. You get me this, we'll have a conversation. I was like, cool. So my plan coming into this year was I'm going to get the first issue of the Mafiaverse KKK made. We're going to do a Kickstarter for a floppy. I'm going to recoup back my costs. Then I'm going to do the second issue. Same thing. Third issue, same thing. Fourth issue, same thing. Then we're going to go to the graphic novel because that's the only way Source Point's taking it. I was very, very cognizant as a father and a
yeah,
family person who's got to put food on the table and on an idiot young 20-year-old who can waste money. That's money that goes to my family. I can't
yeah,
do what I did with the Six Swords. I need to be very frugal, surgical, and make sure that I'm making my money back.
yeah.
I wasn't going all in with this book. Well, I start putting up pictures. I start, posting and doing the marketing that I have to do. I get a message from Dirk. He's like, so when do you think when do you think that book's gonna come out? I was like, oh, I don't know. That depends on the question. Well, he's like, look, if you can get me a graphic novel, I think we can have a conversation about,
That's legit.
pitching it. So I was like, all right. And then that it prompted a long phone conversation with him about what he needed, his thoughts,
Yeah.
this, that, and the
So,
other thing.
what was SourcePoint Press's like? What did they want to see from you as a
It,
writer when you did the pitch? Because I know a lot of places are different. Or
uh,
they're different but very similar in that regards. They want to see panels, they want to see
yep.
lettering, they want to see your story, maybe some of your outline of your story. And basically they want to give them the 5 minute ballpark. Like pitched to me.
Yeah, so and anyone can look at this. It's all on the SourcePoint website. So you'll see like their entire like A, B, and C.
Mhm.
This is everything we want. This is what we expect. It was basically like 5 to 10 pages of completed pages. So they want to see letters, they want to see art, they want to see all that stuff. They want to see what is the script, what is the direction, how many pages. So I put together the whole thing with Martin and Dave Lentz, who's the letterer. We got a cover, we got our pages, we got everything set to go. I think it was either 8 or our first 10 pages. I can't remember
Yeah.
the exact number off the top of my head.
So did you do a
completed.
mix of completed pages and unfinished pages as well?
No.
'Cause I know
So
that's
it was our straight completed pages. So whatever
okay.
their list on their pitch package was that they have on their website, so this is professional advice
To a
again, not
T.
that I'm anyone to anyone. There's 2 things you will learn as a creator: professionalism and money. Money is what makes everything work, because this is my
Yeah.
analogy for comics is writing comics is throwing money into a fire pit till you throw enough money that it snuffs out the fire, and then you start making money. The other thing is
Yeah.
professionalism. I get really annoyed, and I know other people talking to, again, it's something I learned from professional creators. If I put up an ad on, we'll say Facebook, I want an artist for this kind of style, email me at this address with, your art. I want to see your sequentials, not covers, sequentials, and X, Y, and Z. And if I get a Facebook message from someone or a Facebook comment, and it's showing me a cover, and it's showing me this, and it's nothing that I asked for, followed none of the directions, I'm not
This is
working with
the
you.
I understand face.
Yeah, so you get it, and that's when you are pitched to anyone. If they say, and I'm making something up here, if they say they want the page 30 and they want it in lines, and they want page 29 in colors and page 28 in just letters, you do exactly that, because that is what is being asked of you. And yes, comics might be creative and it may not be the same as a 9 to 5, but it's still business, it's still a profession. And if you can't follow those basic things that they are asking for, they can't rely on you to make a book. They can't
Yep.
rely that you're going to be, on task when they're like, hey, you have X amount of days to produce this, or on this deadline, or we need this change, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Those requirements are there because it starts off with that professionalism, that this is what we need. If you can follow these rules, you're already like
Yeah.
50 steps ahead of everyone else, because no one else follows the rules. So whatever was on
Yeah,
that
because
pitch
they're going
packet,
to be
especially
investing
talking to
money
nerds,
into you in the hope
yeah,
that they're going to make their money back off of you. So I mean,
yes,
following
money is
instructions is
involved.
like one of the simplest things. Like
Yeah.
read the instructions. But when you were talking about emailing and stuff like that, I was like, dude, like I know exactly how that feels. I first
It drives
started
you up a
doing
wall.
this, when I first started doing this, and I was like, hey, if you're a creative, if you work in comic books, if you're a writer, an artist, an editor, a penciler, an inker, I want to have you on the podcast. I want to talk to all these people within the comic book world from an indie comic perspective, right? Even if it would have been like a mainstream guy, I've been like, oh, hell yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you. But I just wanted the first step, right? I want to put the podcast out there to go, hey, I'm available and I want to do this. Please come on the podcast. And dude, I got not short of 50 emails, people sending me all their artwork, their stories. I'm like, did we not read anything in the message?
The very specific information provided.
They seen podcast, or they seen artist, writer, publisher, blah, and immediately goes, I'm going to pitch you my work. And I didn't at the time, like I've grown, like, and I say I've grown, I've learned.
Yeah.
I can take those emails now and be like, hey, I like what you're doing, but hey, this is what I do, and this is what I'm trying to do. Is that what you're looking to do? 9 times out of 10, for those types of people, they're gonna be like, oh no, why the hell would I want to do a podcast? I'm like, okay. And I have not seen from them, heard from them, seen them post anywhere, and I will look. I will go back and I will look, okay? And I'm like, oh, well, if they would have probably did that podcast, then they may be getting work. They may be getting work that pays them instead of them sitting in their house doodling or drawing and practicing and writing and doing these things. They may have some jobs lined up, or they may have work lined up. And it's just kind of like a long way of saying, please read.
Please read.
Please read.
Especially with pitches. Like I said, anyone who wants to pitch the source points, since we're talking, read what they say. They are very transparent, and Dirk will say to everyone, and
Mhm.
has been on all the podcasts and events that he's been doing recently since the revamp, is we're very transparent, but please read, and you'll see it all there. So it was really him approaching me. My wife, we had a conversation with my wife. We both kind of uh, took our time. We thought about it. We prayed about it. We did the whole process before. We both
Mhm.
came to the same conclusion. She was okay with it. I was okay with it. So I was like, all right, I'm all in on this. I put up the extra money to do a full book. So again, 110 pages. You can imagine it's a bit of an investment versus the smaller 22 working your way up.
Yeah.
But again, that the whole process, and I put together the pitch package. It got accepted, and that's where it's been at. But I wouldn't have that relationship had I not taken 10 years
You,
to build a relationship with
yeah,
Dirk.
you cultivated that relationship.
And not
You
just with
bought
him.
his books. You supported
Yeah.
his books. You supported his work.
Well,
And
not just him, I'd say Josh too, because I'm going
yeah,
to the booths and they know me as a person. They know I'm professional. They
yeah,
know it's not just like Dirk's the final say because Josh owns the company. It's also knowing this guy's been at this for 10 years. We know he's not going anywhere. We're not going to get him for
yeah.
a period and then he falls off the map. That's the thing that a lot of people in comics, I feel like it's lost because it's going back to the email thing. Yes, comics are creative, and creative we can do sunshine and butterflies and la 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 whatever.
Mhm.
It's a business with money. People's jobs, lives, food on the table depends on it. Professionalism, showing up on time, being on deadlines, not acting like just a crazy idiot. It goes a
Yeah.
long way because they trust you that, hey, we're not going to lose money
And
out on you.
and what I learned many years ago, if you're given a deadline, let's say 5 June, I'm going to have it to you well before 5 June. That's just in my nature now to have it there before that. Because if something ain't right, I want to know before 5 June when it was due. So if I get it to you on the 2nd or the 3rd, I'm now expecting, like, okay, they're going to look at it and they're going to send it back to me. And then I'm going to redo it real quick and get it back to them before 5 June still, because in my head, that 5th is still my deadline to them. And that's just pre-wired into me now at this point. Wait till you have teenagers. They're a ton of fun, let me tell you.
They're getting there. In July.
Well, mine's about to be a
Nurse
real
kid's
adult and be
13.
20, so
Okay.
Who do you call it old?
I said a real adult.
I am a real adult. I have 2 jobs.
I'm still alive. Come on, work with me. You're gonna make me call. You're gonna cause me more work and more editing. But so you're building toward the Kickstarter pre-sale right now. How is that looking? And B, why was Kickstarter the right move for this project? Or is that like how SourcePoint Press and many other I've seen small publishers are kind of going that route? They will help you with the Kickstarter process and kind of like work it that way with you, but you're the man up front.
Going well. It's a lot of work. I've been trying to hit every podcast that I can. We're in the process of making sure that in the next probably month or two, we'll have something that we can start getting out to the comic review sites as well. I've got the pre-page up. Having done 2 Kickstarters before, part of it's called Comics Launch. For anyone who's looking to do comics and do Kickstarters, Comics Launch is a great step-by-step process to tell you everything you need to do about Kickstarter, metrics, here's how you build your page. Tyler is fantastic. It's a great supportive group. I've been with them since basically their creation. So I would go back and look through the course. So I've done 2 Kickstarters before, so I've got a little experience. It's completely changed as a medium since I last did it. I'm learning those new back end things, but going on Reddit, trying to create interaction like, hey, here's our Kickstarter exclusive cover.
Yeah.
Which one do you think? I'm doing stuff on
Yeah.
my Instagram, same thing. I've got my Substack going constantly. And every interview I go or every interview I do, I'm creating a post on Substack. I'm pushing. If you know anything about sales and marketing, you need to see something about 20 to 30 times before someone's actually going to buy it. So I need to make sure, and I'm glad that the Kickstarter is not happening till September because I can build up with these podcasts. I can build up with review sites. I can build up with social media. I can do all these interactive things to just Here it is. 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 We've got, I opened the link about a month and a half ago. We've got 36, 37 followers already. I'm trying to hit way more. Oh, thank you. I'm trying to hit way more. We have basically since you don't get the same, it doesn't work the same when you do followers and backers. So basically, if we get 50 backers, which I'm equating to first day backers, I've got a whole tier for 50, 100, 150, and 200, I think. How it breaks down every 50 of free stuff that on the first day of the campaign you will get. So our first set, if we get to 50 followers before launch, that's a free subscription annually to my Substack. It's a $30 value for all the stuff that I put up. I put up articles. I did a whole 3-piece set on the philosophy of South Park and how they relate to the Greek philosopher Diogenes. I've also put up stuff from like
I've seen that before from somebody else too. It was really good. I've seen something similar to that before from somebody else, and it was really good.
Yeah, I did.
Like it was hysterical, laugh out loud, like people checking on me because what the hell are you reading? Yeah.
So I do stuff like that. I did one on the philosophy of Superman. I've done one. I'm going through one, which is basically like using pro wrestling as a medium of good and evil and storytelling. Of course, I'm weaving in Tolkien of how Tolkien uses sub-creation and wrestling being a sub-creation of story and all these different things. So if you like
it's a perfect example too.
Oh, it is. Like I said, that's my Substack. It's called Master of None because I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at anything. So
I've heard that once or twice before.
Arts history, those kind of topics. And then if we hit 100, once we hit 100, then I start giving out like physical goodies. I've got copies of the 6 stores from Kickstarter exclusive covers that were a one-time printing. I still have some left. You'll get those free and tacked onto the campaign. So it's about building everything I can and doing a lot of legwork ahead of time. So the day that we launch, we're set in a really good position to fund. This is going to be the way that I make the money back. This is SourcePoint's big thing is they're very, very pro. Do a Kickstarter before we put it out into the world because that's a way to support the creators directly. They take the money from the Kickstarter. It all goes to me and this campaign. They make their money off of the actual sales. I actually have it right here. So we're doing a Kickstarter exclusive cover with my friend, Vlad Klaus. He's done Image Void Trip. He's done a bunch of stuff for me. This is his recent Kickstarter he just did called Digital Bardos. He's an amazing artist. So he is doing our Kickstarter exclusive. He did my 6 Swords exclusive Kickstarter way back. He actually did a 4th issue of the 6 Swords we never got to release. He did a cover for a book I never done. So I've been working with Klaus forever.
Yeah.
I love him. He's a great artist. I have in mind, and eventually I will check this box. I want to do a graphic novel with him. I have the idea. It's just a matter of timing and finances. But he's a great creator. He's doing our Kickstarter exclusive. We've been tossing out like different versions and thumbnails he's been putting out. So if anyone's seen them, want to look on the internet, see where those concepts are going, maybe even have some input. I like cover 1. I like cover 2. That's the kind of stuff that's out there. I feel like this originally was about SourcePoint. Somehow we're back on this, but kind of circling back to the original question.
Dude, no, that's how we roll. That's how we roll. That's the comic world as a whole. We start on a topic, we get off the topic, we circle back to the topic, and it's just a visceral circle.
Yeah. So yeah, SourcePoint. That was how it started. SourcePoint is back. They've got some great creators, some great work that's coming out for anyone who's interested in it. There's a lot of artists that they're doing essentially like in quarters. So there's quarter 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
They've already have. I think their first quarter they came out with 5 or 6 books. The next set is another 5 or 6. They've been on Kickstarter. There's some great stuff out there to find that they're putting out there. SourcePoint is back. Dirk wants this thing. It means a lot to him, and he really wants to push it. Josh wants to push it. So if anyone remembers SourcePoint before, it's essentially the same group of guys, just slightly a little more revamped, going away from those floppies right there to graphic novels. And I think the tagline for SourcePoint now is comics with an edge. So if it's got an edge, it's got a little sharpness to it. You know, SourcePoint is the place for you. And like I said,
that's why I always liked them for anyways, because Curse of Cleaver County, so damn good. Like there's so many books in there, right, that were just like phenomenal. And a lot of them, this was their only show. Like this was it for them. Like they made it to this box, and that was the last of them, which is freaking sad because I would have loved to seen a few books in here continue going. Thankfully, The Curse of Cleaver County did continue on through, I think, Image it was, but it was just such a good book. And this, I remember reading it when I got this, and I was just like, I need that book. Like I don't know who I need to talk to, but I need that book to continue. And thankfully, it did. And but yeah, that I'm happy. Like the joy I had when I got that email from you and you said Source Point Press. I literally had to Google that shit. I'm not bullshitting you. I Googled it. I was like, because I didn't. Like, I was like, damn, they disappeared. Where'd they go? Where they been? What have they been doing? And then it got me excited because it was really them. And I could probably say that about a few other publishers as well, but I know they're like dead.
Here,
and
I'll
they
get
may
more
not come
excited.
back.
And this is a offline conversation. Give me whatever information you want me to provide. SourcePoint has an internal communication thing with the other creators, and there's a podcast and media list. Provide me the information. I will drop your information in there. So all the other people who are creating stuff, they'll reach out to you with those books.
Perfect.
And like I said, I'll
So
talk
I
to
do
you
know there's
directly.
a magical list out there that floats around the indie sphere that the USDN is on. And I always love when I get emails from those guys like, hey, you were on the list. I was like, hey, that's awesome. I like being on that list.
I gotta
Like,
find that list.
I have never physically seen the list, but I do know that list exists and it's a real thing. So it's really cool for me. Anytime like I get an email going, hey, you were on the list. I'm like, I'm still on the list, baby.
I'll have to talk to the
and it's one of those where I'm scared, like,
to get a hold of that.
am I going to be too established before long to I'm never going anywhere. I'm always going to be indie. I'm always going to talk to indie creators. This is like what I freaking love to do, man. Like I get to have cool ass conversations with people like CE about a book called The Mafia versus the Klan. I get to hear his real life story.
That's it.
Dude, I get to learn about your a little bit about your story. We had a connection that we're not going to talk about before we even went live, which is really cool because it's such a rare thing within the world that we live in that you will find two people who have done similar routes in life that we have done, like really similar. It's like kind of creepy. And that's, to me, is like the coolest thing ever. And you just don't get that often. So when it does happen and it's something really cool to talk about, we have some shared connections with our other part of our lives. And Source Point's Press is back. Dude, this has been such a freaking amazing episode to learn about your family, your grandfather, who like they don't make dudes like that no more, you know? Like no, they just don't. But before I let you go, man, I did shoot you a message. I don't know if you've seen it, but tell everybody where they can find you and follow the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who wants to back the Six Swords, God, it's been a long night. Anyone who wants to back the Mafia versus KKK, one, you can find me on Instagram and Substack. I'm no longer on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I basically just stick to Instagram and Substack. Facebook too. So Facebook, CE Massari, Instagram, CE Massari, and then for Substack, Master of None. Those are the places I'm at. Those are the places I'm active at. And if you want to back the campaign, it's going to be Kickstarter. You do your little URL search, the Mafia versus the Klan. If you're on my social media, you'll see the links directly. If you can't figure it out or search
they're down below
right
now in the description. Your
so
Substack, your Instagram. I didn't include your Facebook because you didn't send me that link, so I didn't include it originally. But if you want to make sure I get it after this, and I will add it in when it goes live again later.
Yeah, I'll send it through. So if you want to support, that's the best way. CE Massari on Instagram and Facebook, and then Master of None on Substack. This is 100% a love letter to my family. It's a lot of emotion for myself that's affected my family as I've written it. I really tried to stay true, stay grounded, and make it a sense of honoring and not something that's overly glorified. Not just from an Italian American perspective and hitting at those stereotypes, but also just from a storytelling point because it was very impactful and affected real people in my life. that it still affects to this day. You talk about generational trauma. This was an event that had generational trauma within my family that I know intimately and became more intimate with in the process of writing it. So, at the simple face value, if the Mafia versus the Klan doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. It is John Wick meets the Godfather. And it's definitely, if you want to support indie books, if you want something that's a little different and you love good art, this is the book for you. And again, I'm a little biased, but I can't say enough good things. Martin's killing it. I've got a great team, great letterer and Dave, great editor and Drina. And I'm really happy and excited to finally get this out in September when we launch.
Dude, for anybody wondering, CE will be back in September. We're going to launch this thing the proper way, the USDN way, which I love to kick off Kickstarters with people when they launch. It's going to be a lot of fun. When probably August, I will be talking about September, and you will see the September schedule come out. But CE will be back on that schedule. That I promise you. But CE, thank you for joining us tonight and bringing the Mafia versus the Klan to the Council of Nerds. This is exactly the kind of creator-owned storytelling that we love to spotlight here at the USDN. It has the hook, it has the genre punch, but underneath all of that, it has real emotional foundation rooted in family history, justice, and legacy. To the Council, make sure you follow CE. The links are down below in the description. Check out his Substack and follow that Kickstarter pre-launch, because the more that follow the pre-launch, the better the rewards are on the back end from CE and the team over at Source Point Press. And keep your eyes on the Mafia versus the Klan as it heads toward its campaign and its release in September. And like I said, he will be back for that. Stories like this remind us that indie comics can carry history, pain, vengeance, truth, and legacy all on the same page. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council, this has been the USDN Podcast, where indie comics come to life. The Council of Nerds is now adjourned. Y'all be safe out there.
It's a trap!